Hi, this is Siskoid of Siskoid's Blog of Geekery, and you're listening to Comics Recollected. This episode's a little bit different. I'm doing 2 months, January and February of 1984, my 9th and 10th months buying and collecting and reading comics. We're looking at the comics that I got at the time, and what I can remember from those days when I was only 12 years old. Why 2 months? Because things are getting a little screwy. I don't know what kind of winter I was having, but comic book buying seemed kind of sporadic. So though we'll be looking at comics that came out on those months, I may have bought them later in sometimes, or and you're starting to get a little spotty. So though January I bought 6 comics that came out in January, I only bought two comics that came out in February, so only 2, and I started missing issues of comics I was buying more regularly. So kind of a spotty schedule there, so bear with me. It's going to be a kind of a rocky road. First up chronologically in that month, and indeed in that year, is X-Men and the Micronauts number 4, the last part of the 4-issue limited series by Mantlo, Claremont, and Guise. I liked the miniseries generally. Had really nice art and married 2 properties that were unusual, but I don't have any clear memory of this particular issue. As you can see from the cover, Professor X is in a wheelchair, and just last month I'd seen him walking in a New Mutants issue. So this becomes important as we talk about other X-Men comics this month. Still reading Fury of Firestorm the Nuclear Man regularly. Number 22 is actually a recap of his origin story, which is great because I started reading around the early teens of this book, and Firestorm's origin is of course in the previous volume. So it tells us how Ronnie and Professor Stein got merged together originally. There's this actually pretty unusual look at Firestorm without the costume. It's just hanging inside a nuclear furnace in the buff. So I think I'll put that image on the blog because it's so unusual to see him without it. So I guess it's Ronnie's idea of what a superhero costume should be, because he created it out of whole cloth, if you can bear the pun here. He's telling this story to Firehawk in this issue, and I looked through it just before doing the video. It's kind of fun to see that his actual girlfriend, although he's clearly moving towards Lorraine Riley at this point, his real girlfriend is saying, "Ronnie's my man, and you don't get between me and my man." So she's getting played. Marvel Tales number 162, it reprints Amazing Spider-Man number 24 by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. It's an issue, it's a pretty cool issue actually, where Spider-Man fights Mysterio, and Mysterio's throwing all these illusions at him and topsy-turvy rooms to make him go insane, and posing as a psychologist. And in another world, perhaps I would have started reading Marvel Tales more frequently and trying to get into the history of Spider-Man, but I wasn't really a Spider-Man fan. I liked him when I saw him, but I wasn't reading any of his books regularly. So that meant that if I had my 83 cents with tax Canadian to spend on Spider-Man comics, it wouldn't be the old vintage stuff, it would be the more current stuff, which kind of makes sense. I had to look through Uncanny X-Men number 180 to see what was really going on in the comic, because it's a pretty generic kind of or ambiguous kind of cover. Same old story, same old art, and by same old I mean awesome. But this is an issue where we're taking a breather. We've been in a storyline where many of the X-Men almost died a couple times, fighting against the Brotherhood of Evil, and then the Morlocks and all that, Kitty Pryde's wedding. So this is the character building issue, which isn't a concept that I was too familiar with at the time. This is kind of new. I was used to one-off stories. I was used to minimal character development. And so Firestorm was a breather issue this month, telling his origin, but it was an origin story. That's its own kind of thing. Even if he wasn't very active because he was telling a story, it's still not a character building kind of full of subplots kind of tale. This is. So you've got your Professor X walking, and indeed he's playing basketball, he's shooting hoops by himself. Storm, who thinks she's going insane, and he has to check her out for a mental illness. She isn't. She fights some guys in a so there's some action. She fights some guys in a greenhouse. There's relationshipy stuff between her and Kitty Pryde, where they hug in the wind, all of that stuff. Cyclops and Madeline, and everybody's got their little subplots. Colossus feeling that Kitty is moving away from her, and that relationship kind of dying. That's all happening at the same time, and it's of course full of that teen angst that the Uncanny X-Men were known for, and in some measure are still known for. So very much an issue to build the characters leading up to the next bigger storylines. I can't tell from this how Professor X got his legs back, because it's due to him, and I thought for sure it had happened in Secret Wars. It was something in my memory, big changes like this. They went off to the Secret Wars, came back in the very next issue, but then there was that 12-month gap that you had to wait for to look at the crossover and see how those changes happened. And a lot of those changes were happening this very month. But this issue actually closes with the X-Men going into a portal in Central Park and going to the Beyonder world to fight the Secret Wars. So this is pre-Secret Wars for them, and I just don't have the comic where Professor X regains the use of his legs. I just don't know how that happened, and it's the X-Men are such a convoluted history, have such a convoluted history that I might have known at some point and I forgot, because he regained the use of his legs and lost the use of his legs and regained it again. So that's par for the course with the X-Men. What if Captain America were revived today? And by today we mean 1984. That this is What If number 44, not the first issue I bought of this series. The first issue was actually 45. What if the Hulk went berserk? So that only came out in March. So that's part of that weird buying schedule I was on in winter of '84. So I would have gotten Hulk in March, that Hulk issue in March, and thought the whole concept was fascinating. Alternate histories, alternate origins, how small things might change everything about the characters we knew so well. And this issue, the Captain America issue, was still on the stands. So I would have gotten it soon after, maybe the next week. They both have gorgeous Bill Sienkiewicz covers. They're both written by Peter B. Gillis. This one has Sal Buscema art, which is unremarkable usually, but Dave Simons on inks makes it really spectacular, like weird, nice shadings, and you really put a lot of effort into it. It's not regular inking. There's actual shades, and it looks like it was brushed over with an HB pencil in places. So really nice. And of course, Captain America wasn't revived by the Avengers in the 60s, and that means a fascist America. It always goes too far, but it's pleasant. I mean, these are very nice comics. It's really the best part of the whole what if concept was in the later issues, I felt. I've read them all since then, or I mean, at least all of the first series, the first volume, and much of the pretty awful 90s version as well. And I wrote a lot of posts on it. The link to this particular issue's write-up on my blog is underneath this video, of course, as usual. The last issue of the first volume of the official Handbook of the Marvel Universe, number 15, is the Book of Weapons, Hardware, and Paraphernalia. I mean, this is just a book of gadgets and artifacts with detailed diagrams and technical drawings. You can see inside, say, Iron Man's suit, or perhaps Cyclops' visor. Wolverine's skeleton is in there, but it's also got, and these are really awesome, Ant-Man's helmet. But you've also got a lot of weapons that are, just one piece. I mean, the Captain America's shield, for example, is just a one-piece thing. It's not. So they'll have a little history of it, little technical specs, and maybe point to, the diagram would show different parts of it if there were any parts. Some of them are pretty silly. I mean, the Silver Surfer surfboard has a diagram of the surfboard seen from the top and seen from the side, and a little history of it. So that's pretty lame. I mean, there are no mechanics inside of it. Apparently, it's just a solid piece of cosmic silver or whatever it is. But still, very cool issue, and a lot of these drawings would find their way into Marvel Universe Deluxe when they updated to the second volume, had more pages, had more panels drawn from different comics of the character's history. They would usually put the diagram from this issue in with the actual character's file. So really, that's probably how it should be. If you're going to talk about, let's say, Mockingbird's fighting staves, well, their little write-up should be with the Mockingbird entry. That's normal. The comic also had these nice. Mine is damaged, I must say, because it had these little in the inside back cover or inside front cover. Inside back cover, there were these cards that you could cut out. There's an Avengers priority card, as if you were an Avengers member, a member of the Avengers. Also one for Shield agents. So I cut those out, filled them in, put either a picture or a drawing of myself in there. I still have them somewhere. I remember they're full of liquid paper because I kind of messed up the first time around. It's not so easy to write on cover stock like this. It's like just too slippery. It's like magazine cover stock. So I had some trouble putting my name in there, but I think I have the card somewhere. It's not very good because the card is so limp. The paper is too thin, and I wish I hadn't really kind of destroyed the comic. I'd still have that intact image, but I found a nice picture of it on the internet, and I'll be posting that under on my blog as well. Given that Amazing Spider-Man number 252 was the actual one where the black costume premiered, and it appeared maybe a week or two before this issue. We're now in February of '84 with this one. Makes it a strange purchase for me, because why didn't I get that premiere of that new costume? I mean, it was obviously an intriguing thing. I remember the cover very well. But maybe because I saw it so often afterwards, it is, after all, a tribute to the original Spider-Man cover from Amazing Fantasy. But I didn't get the issue. I don't have that issue. I do have its re-premiere, if you will, in Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man number 90, a comic I wasn't regularly buying at the time, but I got this issue. And it doesn't have a lot of Spider-Man in it. It's a Black Cat solo issue where she does her thing, and Spider-Man shows up in the very last page, sporting the new costume he got during the Secret Wars, which of course I still have to read all the way through over the course of the year to find out just what's going on with it and what is this costume. But we don't even get a hint of what might be able to do yet. That you'll have to wait, for other issues before you do. So it's an odd purchase. I don't have the issue anymore. This is one of the comics I had to. I don't remember exactly what I got for it, but I had this friend later on in high school. Friend, let's say more of a gym partner. He used to be very good at sports, and I used to be very bad, so the gym teacher would pair us up when you needed to have partners, like for badminton or whatever. And through that connection, we got to talking about comics because he was a big comics collector reader, and he liked comics that I didn't, or I mean, he was collecting comics I wasn't collecting at the time, and we did a fair amount of trading. So I read a lot of Daredevil through him, a lot of Spider-Man through him, a lot of Justice League, Detroit through his collection, and I don't know what he picked up from me. I mean, he read whatever I had, possibly a lot of issues of X-Men or whatever it was. But he was very interested in getting some Spider-Man issues he was missing. And I think a lot of my spectacular Spider-Man issues, I didn't have a whole lot, but I did have some leading up to the 100th issue. And I think he bought them off of me, or gave me something in return for them. Son of Ambush Bug number 4, for sure, came from his collection because it was kind of water damaged, and he'd had water damaged comics. But probably he paid me in cash for these. Now, around this time, the Madawaska Mall opened in my area, and it had a store called the Book Mart. The Book Mart had books, obviously, and magazines, but of course it had comics. And when we went to do the shopping, my mom and sister would go, off to buy some clothes, and I stayed in the bookstore because there are comics there, I mean, really. So I bought a lot of comics there over the years, and I think I started around this time because a few of these issues I remember quite clearly finding there, and they probably weren't at other venues I was frequenting. So the What If issue, for sure, I got there, and this Secret Wars number 2. And that's why I never got number 1, just the other stores didn't carry this miniseries. So that's kind of disappointing, and it took me quite a few years to get number 1 and I think number 3, I want to say, which were the issues missing from my collection for a while. Still, the characters speak about what's going on, so you catch up rather well. Beautiful Mike Zeck art. He didn't draw the entire series, but the ones he did are the better ones, in my opinion. And so you've got all the superheroes, the Marvel heroes and Marvel villains that have been caught by this godlike being, the Beyonder, and he basically creates a world inside some sort of nothingness. He creates a world from patches from different planets, including a patch from our own, from I think is Detroit. A piece of Detroit is in there somewhere, and like alien jungles and alien deserts and high-tech stuff. Even some, and displaces some people even. And it's a big battle to see what's more powerful, good or evil. So you've got the altruistic heroes on one side, and you've got the greedy, self-serving villains on the other. And then you've got a third party, which is Galactus. And this issue, the most fascinating bit, and I even wrote a post about it on the blog. I'll put the link down there. Is Galactus, who has a completely different motivation. He's neither good nor evil. He's just pure hunger. And will he try to eat the Beyonder world? So there's a nice piece in there about him and bringing his ship to the pocket universe, or the darkness where the Beyonder has set this all up. And it shows just how powerful the Beyonder is, because Galactus is, so powerful usually that he can be pwned by the Beyonder. So some great sequences like this. It starts out, the miniseries starts out as pretty epic, to have Galactus as just another player kind of thing. So this is one to watch, and it also features, you can see Magneto on the cover. That's because Magneto defects. He's been thrown in with the heroes because his motivation is actually altruistic. It's about the greater good of mutant kind. So though he's a villain, he's actually trying to do something for others, not for really for himself. So he's thrown in with the heroes, but of course he'll defect and start off an offshoot where a sort of mutant resistance, like a secondary villains or heroes kind of team that the X-Men will join as well. So So that creates a rift between the heroes, inside the heroes team. It's entirely probable I got a lot of these comics in March, but the comics that actually came out in March I'm keeping for the next episode. But we'll also see how I started missing issues from various series. So when I say March, it might even be April, because I'm missing a lot of the March issues of comics I was buying. Anyway, we'll let that keep until next time, and hope you check out the blog siskoid.blogspot.com for more comics, role-playing games, sci-fi, TV, lots of Doctor Who these days. So join me there. Read some stuff, leave some comments. Always appreciated. Thanks.